You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Come On Man. If you haven't done so already, please like, fave, subscribe, hit those notifications, and leave a comment below. It can be literally anything, like I love the show or comment, just anything like that. The likes, the comments, all that boosts us in the algorithm. If you're listening on your favorite audio platform of choice, please give us a 5-star review and actually type out why you like the show. All that kind of stuff helps boost us in the algorithm, gets us in front of more men. All right, guys, this week I have an interesting guest. You might know her. She goes by Empress Collective on TikTok. Her name is Alexi Turner, and she's a spiritual and feminine development coach. And she's an all-around interesting person. She's really into archetypes and explaining the different type of archetypes that are out there. If you have never heard of that, stay tuned. It's pretty fascinating. She goes into it. And I will bring you that conversation right after this. All right, joining me this week is a spiritual and feminine development coach, vintage connoisseur, singer, and author. It's Alexi Turner, but you may know her better as Empress Collective on TikTok. What's going on, Alexi?
Hi, how are you? So nice to be here with you.
Yeah, nice to virtually meet you, really. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I've been following you for a while, so yeah, it's nice to finally have dialogue with you.
Yeah, you haven't been offended, so that's good. So you're like, well, maybe a little offended, but
I don't think I've found anything yet I've been offended by.
Oh man,
not enough to remember, at least.
Well, good. That's good. So you're a singer.
Yeah.
Okay, sing something for me right now.
No, don't put me on the spot like that.
Oh, come on. Yes, I had another guest on last year sometime, and I was reviewing his book. And in his book, he talked about freestyle rapping and how he learned how to freestyle rap, and it helped him be better around people and be more sociable because he could think of things off the cuff. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, freestyle rap something for me. He wouldn't do it either. So
my voice coach used to say that it was so disrespectful for people to ask people to sing on the spot, but people don't understand that. And if somebody is like a singer who sings every day, then sure, they can sing on the spot, but I don't really sing professionally every day anymore. So I'd have to warm up first and then, give you some tunes. But
Excuses. I'm just kidding.
It is an excuse, but
fair enough. What's a vintage connoisseur?
So I collect vintage clothes and resell it. And I also work with clientele to find them one-of-a-kind pieces. And I used to work with high-end jewelry. So like Edwardian jewelry, Victorian jewelry, that kind of stuff. And So
what's considered vintage? I wear a t-shirt and jeans most of the time. So clearly I know nothing about fashion.
Yeah.
What's vintage? Yeah.
Yeah. You can find like vintage stores that sell like, t-shirts from the 80s and it's considered vintage.
Okay.
Yeah. You can find jewelry. Sorry, they're doing trash can outside or something. It's really loud. You can find jewelry from the early 1900s or late 1800s. That's vintage. Even vintage. I know a guy that's really successful. He sells vintage kitchenware, like the old cast iron skillets. Those are worth a lot of money. So he goes to these estate sales, and we go to estate sales around Los Angeles, and we find unique pieces and either resell them, put them in our booth at a vintage mall, or I have like certain clients and customers I work with.
Yeah. Speaking of the cast iron, my mom went on this, I don't know. She went through this phase when I was a teenager where she had to have cast iron, and she was going around and buying them up at all these yard sales and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, they don't even make these anymore. And I the other day I was at Walmart. They have them there. They have cast iron there. I'm like, what are you talking about, Mom? They still make them.
But they're made differently now.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it goes. Like when you find something, I mean, even old world clothes are made differently. They're made better, I have vintage dresses that have held up way stronger than, modern made garments. They use different fabrics and different ways of sewing. So they're just made differently. Everything I feel like in the past was made a little bit better than it is today. It's kind of like Japan. If you go to Japan, they have all of their stuff they make is, handmade with great detail, precision, hard work. And it's expensive to buy and to live over there, to buy their stuff, because they kind of do things how we used to do things before we globalized everything.
Yeah. Now everything's disposable, and it's just more, everything's designed to be thrown out and replaced, and you buy more.
Yeah.
Instead of just buying something and keeping it forever. Like my parents have an old fridge from the 1970s still trucking along, but modern day fridges last like 2 years and you got to get a new one.
Yeah. They design it so you have to rebuy. I had my MacBook that broke and I brought it in and they were like, oh, this is over 2 years old. We don't make pieces for laptops that old. I'm like, what do you mean that old? They're like, well, we update it every year. So you buy every year. I'm like, who can buy a new computer every year? I mean,
I my day job, I actually work in the IT industry. There is a thing called Moore's Law, though, like that, the speed of a processor grows exponentially, and that's all nerd shit. Hey, anyway, can you explain what a spiritual and feminine development coach does exactly?
Yeah, so I've been doing spiritual work with people for about 10 years. People come to me with all kinds of stuff: trauma, relationship patterns, addictions, relationship problems, right? Patterns. We have patterns that we kind of, we're programmed between the ages of 0 to 7. So, depending on the kind of environment you grow up in, you take on your parents' mannerisms, their ideas, their beliefs. You observe how they respond and react to things. And, if you grow up in a really traumatic household or like a really aggressive household, right, you can either become traumatized in different ways. Some people become traumatized and they become aggressive like their parents, or they become pushover doormats because they don't like drama because they saw a lot of it in their house. So then they grow up and try to have, relationships, and they don't have the tools to build a relationship because of how they were raised. Mm-hmm. Right. So I help people with that, with healing. We do different techniques for healing, for rewiring the brain, our belief systems. And then I help women with their femininity. So a lot of women will come to me like really wounded. They were raised by aggressive mothers who taught them to hate men, or they had sexual abuse. So they, can't have intimacy with men, or they may have seen their mom go through something traumatic with a guy and they internalize it. I had a client who saw her mom get raped, for example, by a man. So she grew up, wanting to dominate men, or, being really, like this with men, right? And she ended up developing an illness, and her illness prevented her from being able to actually be intimate. So she was so traumatized emotionally that her body reacted in a way where she would reject, like she couldn't even have sex, right? So we are so impacted by these, things. And as you probably know, women have kind of lost their femininity. So then they get older and they get cheated on, or they just have a lot of string of bad relationships where they try to control or dominate men, and, the relationships fail and they wonder why. It's like, you're, not supposed to behave like that with a man, right? So, we're not taught as women how to deal with men, or, what men are like, or, how to treat them even, we're just told to never depend on one. My mom just was always like, never depend on a man, but my dad like spoiled me. So I was like kind of confused. I'm like, but when I ask you for things, you always tell me to go ask dad. So I don't understand why you're telling me not to depend on a man, So a lot of us were taught to like hate guys. So then we detach from our femininity. And then, and then women grow up and they're single and they want a relationship.
Yeah, man, that's one thing that I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around, right? Because I study a lot of this red pill stuff, right? And I feel like it gets a bad rap. A lot of people look at it and they just think it's all about hating women. And it's absolutely not. In content that has red pill, or they've branded as red pill, and they're just bashing women. That's not what really red pill is. But there's a concept of, men and women in traditional roles tend to do better, right? Men taking the lead, being the masculine in the relationship, and women being submissive and feminine in the relationship. Like those relationships just tend to last longer. And so it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, my daughter, I kind of want her to not have to depend on men, because her mom is so dependent on men that it becomes an issue, I think, at some point too, where women get into relationships, not because they want those relationships, but because they need them to survive,
Yeah. It's like a codependency, or like you're just you're settling or something because you're looking for the effect of the relationship, which is like the money, the external things, which does not hold a relationship together. You can't sustain a relationship with somebody if it's only for what you're getting out of it monetarily. Mm-hmm. I've always been told to find a man who can like do for you and provide for you, and you learn to love him over time. It doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, no.
No,
I don't think
so.
It's
good.
Yeah.
It's good to develop life skills. It's good to develop ways to become independent. Living in New York City, I lived in New York for 13 years. I went to fashion school, and most of the jobs in fashion, they start you off at $28,000 a year. What are you going to do with that? Right. So
yeah, not in New York. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to work multiple jobs. I'd have to, find other ways to make income. So I developed a lot of skills. So I know if, me and my partner break up or whatever, I know I can always make money. Do I have to make money every day if he's providing for me? No. But if we separated, I know that I have what it takes to be independent because I've been independent before. Whereas, women who kind of go into college wanting to get married, never work and never develop skills. And then what? You wake up at 30 if your husband leaves you and you've never worked and you don't have a degree and you don't have any skills. What are you going to do? And I believe in prenups. I'm definitely an advocate for prenups. And, I think that, there are ways to kind of protect yourself as a woman if you do relinquish working to raise a family. But I think it's still good to have a life outside of your family and husband. You can't put all of your energy and your emotion and your happiness on a man because that's a huge burden for him to carry, or your children because it's a huge burden to carry, right? You have to find ways to make yourself happy.
Yeah, I think that's important for men too. I think that was probably one of the reasons why like my marriage didn't work out, honestly, is I had zero friends outside of my marriage. Like I would go to work and I'd go home and that was my life. I didn't have friends outside. I didn't have bowling night with the boys or anything like that. So, my wife, like, she was the only person I could depend on for anything. And I think that's just that's not a good spot for men to be in.
or women too, right? A lot of women will get into relationships and they'll put, women are chit chatters. We like to chit chat about stuff. And then she'll start talking to her husband about her girl drama, her work drama, her this or that. And he's busy or he has things going on. He can't listen to you talk. I have a friend who like her boyfriend treats her like a queen and she complains to me that she'll call him in the middle of a work day and try to have like long-winded conversations with him. I'm like, girl, he's working. Like, she's like, but like, why can't he just talk to me? And I'm like, because he's working. Like, you can't just call him in the middle of the day and expect him to have a conversation like your girlfriend would. If you want to chit chat about like mindless drama, call your friends, you know, call me, whatever, you know, but don't expect him to be available for every single one of your needs. You know, I think that there's like different pockets of life where you can kind of compartmentalize, you know, like my friends fill a void or whatever. They feel this need for me. My husband feels this need for me. My work, it feels this one. So then, like you mentioned, you don't put all of it onto one person. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just a bad spot to get into. And for guys to, if guys let their women do that, you know, that call them during the day and just, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell me all about it. They end up becoming her emotional tampon. You know, I say that's kind of derogatory, but that's what he ends up being. And they stop being lovers. And now he's just, you know,
your girlfriend.
Nice girlfriend. And she eventually will lose attraction because she doesn't want to date another woman. You know, it's like,
well, it depends, you know, it depends on the woman. You know, this woman is a queen archetype. Her ex-husband was very strong military man, very dominant. All of her exes were very dominant men. She's a dominant woman. It never really worked out. And her boyfriend now, I actually went to high school with him. Nice guy, really sweet, nice guy. You know, she needs that because she's more of a dominant person herself, more masculine. She's got a lot of masculine energy. So she needs that sensitive tampon, emotional tampon.
Yeah.
You know,
to have that polarity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense. I do want to talk about these archetypes here in a little bit because I know nothing about them. But how did you become a coach? And did you have to go to school for that?
I mean, I guess you could go to school for it. I didn't go to school for it. I've been doing coaching. I just kind of fell into it, to be honest. Almost 10 years ago, I've been working with clients. This might sound kind of weird, but I have prophetic dreams. I have psychic ability. I've had since I was a kid, and it's just something that I didn't really advertise, but I would have like dreams about people, friends, and I would tell them what would happen, and then it would come true. And then one of my friends like almost died, and I had a dream about it a month before it happened. And I told her what happened in the dream, like how she survived. And then when it happened in real life, like she knew what to do. And you know, she called me from the hospital and was like, all I could think about was the dream you had. So I started studying Buddhism, practicing Buddhism. I pretty much like spent all my time at a Buddhist center for like many, many years. I was a young women's leader. And I just started doing spiritual work with people and healing work. And I was on YouTube originally. And it just kind of became like, I believe we have different purposes in life. And I think we have one purpose that is a dutiful purpose where we give back to humanity in some way. Some people do it through money. Some people do it through doing charity work. I feel like my gift is helping people through my spiritual awareness. So I just kind of fell into it kind of just by accident. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like to ask coaches that because there's always it's almost like a running joke. You know, I see occasionally on TikTok certified dating coaches, you know, and I've had tons of dating coaches and other kinds of life coaches and stuff on. And there's only been one that actually was certified, and he went through some kind of like course and stuff. And so I just think that's it's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can get certified. I've never really sometimes people get mad at me. I'll do live streams. And one guy came on my live stream and he was like, where's your therapy license, or like, where's your college degree in psychology or whatever? Yeah. And I'm like, I've studied so much. Like, I'm a reader. I I'm a brain person. I'm a thinker. So I read a ton. Like I've gone to so many healing workshops. Like I've done the work of somebody has a master's degree, in my opinion. Just because I didn't pay $100,000 to have the knowledge I have doesn't mean I'm not credible.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, you know, for me, it's like my clients all have success. So for me, the proof is in the pudding. I don't need a degree. I already, you know, people have results. That's all for me. That's all that matters. If I did this work and none of my clients had results, I wouldn't do it, because then I'd feel like a phony and I wouldn't feel right taking your money. Right. It's a responsibility when people come to you with their life problems. Like, you know, like it's a responsibility you have. I have a woman I'm working with now for a 3-month program. She spent a lot of money. She's a college student with me to help her in her life, you know, and since she's been working with me for less than a month, she got her dream job offer at JP Morgan. She got $25,000 more than what they had offered her. She asked for, they accepted. She's had, you know, a healing experience with her. She's had a lot of different things. I've worked with couples. I've worked with men. I worked with one couple who they'd been married for 17 years and he did 3 sessions with me. He signed up for a 3-month course with me, but he did 3 sessions. And within those 3 sessions, he had such monumental change. He said his business had changed. His money started growing bigger. His wife started to shift, and his wife actually showed up on one of my live streams a few days ago, thanking me. She said, your work has changed my life, my husband's life. Our relationship has never been better. So if I didn't have these kinds of results, I wouldn't do what I do. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's and you had also had somebody come to me, reach out to me, referred someone, and she had said that she'd been in therapy for 20 years and no one has psychoanalyzed her in the way that I did. And I pulled out the root of her problem that she'd never been able to see before. So I know you had mentioned to me that you don't really do coaching. It is stressful, you know, because you realize that people have a lot of trauma. You think you have trauma, then you hear other stories and you're like, damn, I really don't have it that bad.
I never realized how bad some people have it until I started podcasting about this stuff. And I have guys that come out of the woodwork, you know, they'll hit me up and they probably do the same thing to you. And I'm just like, wow, you know, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm just a podcast host, you know?
Yeah. I had some guy that reached out with this really crazy story. He wrote me a novel of I'm like, I don't really even have time to read this. It was such a crazy story. I didn't even know what to tell him, you know? Yeah. So it's difficult sometimes because you want to help people, but at the same time, like, I'm not God, you know? Some people call me and they'll be like, when is such and such going to call me? Or like, can you like spiritually tap into this? And I'm like, I'm not God. Like,
it's not magic. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I know. So
that's it. It's heartbreaking too, because I do want to help people out. You know, sometimes they'll ask me a question. I'm like, yeah, I'll try my best, and I'm like, well, this is what I think. But if it's sometimes I get people that just want to call. They're like, hey, can I call you sometime? And just no, man. Like I got stuff to do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've had people too. They'll email me and they'll be like, I wanted to talk to you about my marriage. I have some advice for you on how to make a marriage work or something. Call me. Here's my number. Or like, you know, I'd love to talk to you about me and my wife and our relationship. And, you know, here's my number. Call me when you get a chance. I'm like, I'm not just going to like pick up the phone and be like, hey, Jim, you know, I got your email. Like,
I want to know your story
with me. Like, if you want to talk to me, you can book a session, but I'm not just going to like, I don't have all the free time to just like call whoever emails me, you know?
Yeah. So. There's some interesting people out there. I just interviewed a guy in the red pill space. His name is Ryan Stone. He, right before we recorded, he's like, dude, I got to know, what's your story? Because you just seem like a normal guy. And like everyone else in this space is like, you know, on the spectrum. I'm like, I am just a normal guy. I don't know, man. So it takes all kinds, I guess. So, I do want to ask though. So when you talk about spirituality, are you a law of attraction person?
I believe in it. I don't like do videos on it that much, but I believe if we think about things enough, I mean, I've manifested things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that because you did a video the other day on how you manifested meeting some celebrity guy or
that was
whatever.
crazy. Yeah. No, I mean, I manifested a lot of things. I manifested my job with Lady Gaga. I manifested my partner. I manifested money. I wanted 30 grand one month. I made it happen. I got it, but there's like so much that goes into life, in my opinion, that, the law of attraction is like one thing, but you also have, there's other laws that work. And I actually do believe in God, that like sometimes I think it's a 50-50. I think it's 50% like what we do and the actions we take and what we wish for. And I think 50% is divinely orchestrated. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of videos on like attracting in a specific person and attracting in a man to love you. And I don't like to have that much control or feel like I have that much control over a person,
Yeah, I don't think that works. I study it quite a bit and I do episodes about it. But I'm a big fan of Bob Proctor, who just passed. Yeah, he just passed away recently. But one of the things that he talks about is like you can't, with the law of attraction, you can't compel someone else to do something that they don't want to do because everybody has free will. Mm-hmm. So trying to attract a specific person by willing it to the universe like just doesn't work unless they're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, like so I had a client the other day who did half of my workshop, and she'd been dating a guy, and after she did some of the exercises and tips and techniques like spiritual exercises and stuff on being more magnetic, etc., the guy she was dating showed up to her house with her favorite flowers, which were white orchids, and he didn't even know those were her favorite flowers. And so that's kind of a manifestation of like she's creating more self-love within, and now her partner's kind of showing up mirroring that, right? But the specific guy that I had manifested, when we met, he was very different than I thought he would be, and I don't think we were really that compatible. I could have visualized or whatever again, but like I'm not going to try to mold somebody to be my perfect man, right? And I had a situation where I had gone through a traumatic breakup with a guy. And I tried manifesting him back for a while. And I would end up manifesting like seeing his friend in the middle of nowhere or like weird things like that. But then at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? This guy has so many like fatal flaws that why do I want to even be with somebody like that anyway? And when I finally like relinquished the idea of manifesting him as like showing up as the person I wanted, mm-hmm. I ended up going in within and saying, you know what, this is actually what I want. A guy who's like this, and this. I don't care who it is. I prayed to God that I wanted to meet a guy who shared my heart. I wanted a guy who had the same heart as me, who's compassionate, loving, empathetic, spiritual. And about a week or two later, I met my partner, and he was everything. I actually found the list yesterday. I was going through my storage unit. I had some stuff in storage, and I found some papers, and I found the paper I wrote the qualities of a person I wanted, and he possesses every single one of them. Now, I didn't like find him and say that's the guy, but I just prayed for somebody who embodied that versus trying to make someone embody that for me. And to me, that's much more freeing and empowering than trying to change someone. You can't get into a relationship with somebody to change them. We hear this a lot, that men marry women hoping they'll never change, whereas women marry men hoping that they will change.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And the idea of writing a list, that's a really big concept that a lot of guys that listen to the podcast are Corey Wayne fans, and Corey Wayne writes that in his books. You have to write a list of wants and don't wants and like focus mm-hmm. on the things that you do want. And Dr. Robert Glover talks about that as well. And I did that myself when I was on the dating circuit, and it really focuses you in on the right people. Mm-hmm. And just, I think it's a part of, I call it, it's part of law of attraction, but really it's just subconsciously keeping yourself aware of these qualities and not ignoring red flags and stuff.
Yeah. I have a friend who, when she got out of a relationship, she got sober, she started changing her lifestyle and was like, I want to be with somebody who's the same. And then she ended up choosing a guy who's like an addict and like all kinds of things. And I was like, girl, you went against your standards. Like you have to have a standard, a non-negotiable. Your non-negotiable should be nobody who does drugs. Like you're sober, you want somebody who matches your lifestyle, right? And she didn't stick to her standards, and now she's paying the price for it because it's a toxic relationship. You know, she's repeating a pattern. So this is what I work on with people, is changing the patterns. Why do you choose these men? You know, this girl in particular chooses, I swear in a past life, she was like a gangster's wife. She loves like this kind of dangerousness that some men have. So she'll choose men that have a sense of like thrill to them, but not a safe thrill, like a dangerous one, womanizers, or men who, you know, might not do things the legal way, right? And she's not that way. So, you know, we kind of had to go into, well, why are you like this? Like, where does this come from?
They're edgy. They're bad boys.
She likes the bad boys. She likes the bad boys. But like bad boys, not just like kind of bad, but like
those guys are exciting. They're sexy
all the way around. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is.
The nice guys are boring. Yeah. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, but this guy is not that he's exciting. He like, well, he's a different archetype. He's a manager archetype. He's very romantic with her. He rubs her feet. He loves on her. He dotes on her, but he's a womanizer. You know, he dotes on all women like that. You know, he can't be faithful. He told her that from the beginning, and she still dove in thinking that she could, you know, change him.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad told me when I was a kid, he's like, you know what, you need to pick up a bad habit like smoking or something like that, because women are going to want to change you. And that's how you get women and stuff. That's the kind of stuff my dad taught me.
Funny that, you know, that may work.
It's not wrong. He's not wrong. So speaking of archetypes, you make a lot of videos about archetypes. There's 4 archetypes for women. Is that correct?
4 for women and 4 for men. There's technically, if you look at Carl Jung's work, there's technically 12, but women are kind of a blend of 2, and then men, there's 4 for men. And it just makes things more simplified for me and for everybody to kind of go off the basis of the 4.
So these come from Carl Jung then?
Yeah. And there's actually a guy who wrote a book, I forget the author's name, but it's called King, Warrior, Lover, Magician. And it's all about the 4 archetypes of men. And it's like rediscovering your masculinity or something. Somebody had commented that book on my page.
Okay. Was it King, Warrior,
Lover, Magician, I think.
Lover, Magician. Those are the 4 for men.
That's what this guy refers them to. They kind of have different names.
What do you call them?
I call them ruler, entrepreneur, trader, manager, same thing, and creator, manager, entrepreneur, ruler.
Okay. And what are the 4 for women?
Girl, lover, queen, mother.
Girl, lover, queen, mother. Okay. So can you give us a brief rundown of what those all mean?
Yeah. So for women, it's kind of the continuation of like womanhood, right? We start off as girls, and then we hit puberty. We have our like sexual liberation moments. Some women do, some women don't. Some women are traumatized from theirs, and you know, it depends on. Sorry, somebody just sent me something. So yeah, then you have your connection to your sexuality. Some women never develop that at all. You have your queen energy, which develops in your like late 20s to
Please stand by. We are having technical difficulties.
Okay, so the queen energy is a woman who, you know, in her late 20s to early 30s. It's when a woman really wants her independence, when she goes off to follow a mission, a goal, something like that. She develops her confidence. She believes that she deserves, you know, great things in life, or she goes to college and, you know, she kind of works up the ladder, right? And then you have the mother energy, and she develops late 30s, early 40s. But some women are natural queen mothers, right? Or they're natural girl lovers, and they don't really develop the other 2 archetypes, because women are strong in 2 energies, and then kind of like your karmic lesson is to develop the other 2. With the men, it's different because women are fluid. We're changeable. You know, we have cycles every month. We give birth. Our bodies change.
You're like the weather.
Yeah, I say we're like water. We can flow with life. We're supposed to flow with life at least. And sometimes we will fight against the current. But yeah, so with men, they're strong. Like men are like strong, like trees, like rooted into the earth, and they're strong in their bodies. Women are flexible. Men aren't as flexible in their bodies. So men are pretty strong in one archetype, and women have more. So, two, or they can develop more than two. But yeah, our men can I've seen some men that can develop traits of two, but they're usually one. And then if you can determine the archetype you are, it will really help in choosing the right mate. Because a lot of times we choose the wrong mate. I chose the wrong guys for a long time until I discovered this work and realized who I was. And then I matched my counterpart who was the better fit for me. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I mean, are there archetypes that are better than others? Like, oh man, I'm a magician. This sucks. Like, or that's not how that works. They all have their good qualities.
Yeah. They all have good and bad qualities, right? Okay. And we all have shadow qualities too. So like the queen archetype, she can be a woman who's confident, successful. She's vibrant. She's great to be around. She can delegate well, run a business well. But the shadow of her negative trait, if she is operating out of her negativity, is the Amazon woman, which we see a lot, the woman who attacks men. The queen protects herself. The Amazon attacks others. So she'd be a woman who like hates men, thinks the patriarchy needs to burn. She hates women, hates, feminine women, or hates stay-at-home moms, this kind of woman. Thinks she's better than everybody, right? So that would be the shadow of the queen. Whereas the girl energy is very open and loving, creative. She's a bit naive. She's easy to be around. She's happy, but in her shadow, she's connected to our fears. So the girl is brave. She'll go out there and face her fears, but her shadow, like Alice in Wonderland, right? She had to slay the Jabberwocky. She faced her fear, but in the shadow, the girl will stay in her fears. So she won't get out of the house. She won't challenge herself. She will depend on men too much. She will depend on her parents. She won't leave the house. I have a client who is a girl, like she hasn't even developed the others. She's just a girl archetype. And she still lives with her parents in her mid-20s. And I asked her to show me her dating profile. And she was like an innocent girl. Her energy, the way she dressed, how she carried herself, So, but she hasn't been able to leave the nest. So she's operating in her shadow. So, because of that, she's never had a boyfriend. So, you can be, girl energy. A lot of queens want to be girls because the girl energy attracts the alpha guys. And, women, I think we're kind of wired to want that in a man. And queen women don't really attract the alphas. They attract I guess you could say the beta. I know people don't like it when you use that term, but the more softer.
I've learned that you're only supposed to use alpha and beta, ironically. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a placeholder term, guys. Jesus, leave it.
It's just an easy way to express what you're trying to say, right? So the more really feminine, sensitive, not so, I guess, strong men, they go best with the queen women, So I've seen those relationships work out quite well. But then a lot of times the queen wants a man to dominate her, and she'll leave that guy or cheat on him with a stronger male, right? But the stronger males don't want the strong queens because it's too much work. Yeah, too much work.
Yeah. That's a big problem. I feel like that modern feminism has sort of pushed on women, right? Is you're all bad bitches. You all deserve the best. You all don't need a man now. And so women are like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm going to be a CEO of a company. I'm going to be a lawyer. And then they get in these top tier positions, and then they are unhappy because women traditionally, I mean, like evolutionarily speaking, they like to date up. Right. And so when you're the top dog, well, who's up from that? Like very little, not that many people are, they're going to be at your level or, above. You have very slim pickings at that point. And the guys that are at that level don't want a boss bitch. They,
Yeah.
they want someone who's submissive, that's easygoing, that makes their life easier, not harder. Yeah.
Yeah. They want peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what the girl offers to the ruler archetype. Yeah. And women will come to me and they're like, well, I'm a queen and I want a ruler. And I'm like, but it's not your natural counterpart. And sometimes I'll meet with women who are married to more beta males wanting rulers. But then I'm like, you're a ruler yourself as a woman. You wouldn't like being with a ruler. You wouldn't enjoy that. And then she's like, yeah, actually, you're right. I probably wouldn't. I had a male client the other day who called me, and it was so funny because he was such a smart guy. He was a creator archetype, which is like the brilliant one, the really intelligent guy, like the Einsteins, the Nikola Teslas. And he was very smart. And he said, well, I always thought I was a ruler, but then you did a video on the creator, and the shadow is the man who lives at home with his mom and doesn't leave the mom's basement and doesn't have the confidence to go out there and do things. And he's like, that's where I'm at in my life. I'm living with my parents and dropped out of college and not a ruler at all, right? He's more of a creator. But once he kind of discovered his archetype and who he is, he then realized, oh, that's why my last relationships didn't work, because I was choosing girl lovers and creators are both feminine energies. They don't go well together. He needs a queen. And he had met a girl who was like in college for gender studies. So, she's definitely a queen. Mm-hmm. And he was very drawn to her. And I said, yeah, that's a woman that would be good for you, because the queen helps to support the creator. The creator and the manager need a woman to become successful. The ruler and the entrepreneur don't need a woman. So that's kind of the difference.
Interesting. Don't you think though that so women, say, what was it? It's a queen archetype, right? Queen archetype. They get a guy that's say a creator, and that might go well for a while, but I mean, she still wants a guy that's sort of dominant though, right? I mean, a lot of the times. And so that I feel like that only lasts for so long before she's like, all right, I'm tired of you. You're a wuss ass.
Yeah, this does tend to happen where, the creator is more timid in the bedroom. He's not a take charge kind of guy. He's not going to dominate you, and he's not going to initiate sex a lot of the times. Of course, case by case, you can meet guys that are like that. But yeah, they're the least aggressive in that way. And then she wants a guy that's going to take charge. So there was this story of the woman that I studied with, Natalia Kolbikina. She was saying that she had a client who came in, husband and wife, and the wife was like, I just want him to fuck me, and he's like, I don't know. I just, so he finally did it. He came back and he was like, yeah, I finally did it.
I'm a real man. Yeah.
Yeah. But then a few months later, they couldn't make it work. But I do know somebody who's a queen, and she's with a creator. He's a really amazing musician. He toured with Michael Jackson, a lot of different people. And she helps to book his tours, because the queen has to help him to be successful. So she books his tours. She negotiates his price. She mingles with people to get him more work. She is a real estate person, so she makes the money. And she loves and adores him because he praises her, but she was in a really abusive relationship with a ruler prior to him. So she likes his sensitive nature. She likes how empathetic and loving, because the creator is very loving and doting. He praises his woman. She likes that. So she doesn't want a dominant man, because she dealt with that before and it traumatized her. So she's been married to him for 15 years, so it can work. But it's not the most common relationship that works, as you mentioned.
Okay. Interesting. So you also have done a lot of videos where you explain different archetypes that celebrities are. Mm-hmm. And now based purely on videos that you've seen from me on TikTok, what archetype am I?
I've been trying to figure that out. I don't know.
I like to keep people guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. What do you work in technology, right?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I've been doing that for about 17 years now.
And what do you do exactly? Are you in sales or?
No, I work in networking and network security.
Okay. So is that more of a protective role?
Yeah, it is for the company. Yeah, but that's not why I got into it. I wasn't like, I want to protect companies.
Yeah.
But I fell into it because I thought it'd be cool. I thought it'd be more like the movie Hackers or something. It totally isn't. It's way more boring than that. But
do you like sports?
I like pro wrestling. That's pretty much the only sport I like. I like odd sports. So like pro wrestling. I like strongman competitions. Like World's Strongest Man, stuff like that.
Okay.
I can watch football. I like live baseball games, but I otherwise don't follow it, on TV.
Do you like to travel?
I do. Yeah.
Do you like to go like skydiving? Do you like to go like, if you could go on like an adventure through like the Amazon, it's kind of dangerous but exciting, like would you like to do that?
No on the skydiving, but yes on the Amazon adventure. That would be fun.
Do you feel like you're like a thrill seeker? Like you like adrenaline rushes?
Not particularly. But I do like, I do like roughing it, so like the idea of, surviving in the jungle for like a week or so does sound appealing to me.
Do you like your freedom?
100%.
You're probably an entrepreneur archetype.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one of the masculine archetypes.
Yeah. Masculine. Do you hear that, guys? Masculine.
You don't really strike me as a ruler. Rulers are more calculated. They're quiet. They don't really use social media. They can be somebody in a role similar to yours. Like police officers are rulers, or military men can be rulers. Finance guys, politicians can be obviously rulers because they want to rule the world, but they're more private about their life. They tend to not use social media. They like to watch the news. They're more serious. Boring sometimes.
I was in the military, and when I got out, I originally wanted to be a police officer. And so I got my first job out of the military was private security. So I did private security for a while, and I just realized that I hated telling people what to do. I was kicking homeless people off of properties and telling kids they couldn't skateboard and stupid stuff like that. And I was like, I'd be the worst cop in the world, because someone would be speeding and I'd have to pull them over and be like, you shouldn't be speeding,
So you're probably an entrepreneur then, because rulers like the control,
Yeah. I much rather, like, if people aren't bothering me, like, I don't care what they're doing. So,
yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So let me ask you this. What's the biggest struggle that your clients are having, do you think? Like, is there a common thread
with women?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like women complain the most that they can't find masculine men. They can't find men that take charge, or, men that want to go like 50-50. And I mean, I know you have your own stance on that, but I feel like,
I don't think like when it comes to a date, I think men should pay 100%.
Okay.
That's so about for me, that's setting the tone and taking the lead,
Yeah. And a lot of guys don't want to do that because they don't want to feel used per se. Right.
Well, they're dumb.
And then, it just doesn't, it's not attractive for a woman to have to do the 50-50 thing, because she doesn't feel like, a woman wants to feel like desired by a man. If you can make a woman, like my partner writes me love letters, like, I mean, some people might call him like a simp to it. I mean, but I love him. I adore him. I'm obsessed with him, but he treats me like a queen. So because he treats me so well, I like love him so much. I'm so grateful that I have a man that he's so kind. He's never raised his voice at me. He's never mean, he always calls me Highness Alexi, or beloved Empress Alexi. This is just how he is, and like some men would think like I don't know about that, but I love it, and because he treats me that way, it makes me like love him more. Whereas like a lot of men have this idea that the meaner you are to a woman, the more she'll love you. And some women, if they're kind of fucked up, like that probably is true.
Well, I think a men's problem really is that they pour that kind of stuff on like way early. Like they just meet a chick on a dating app. They text back and forth like 5 times. They haven't even met in person and they're already laying it on thick. You know, it's like, man, she doesn't even know you yet. You don't even know her yet. That is going to freak her out, you know. But if you've been dating for a while, you know, sure. And if there's, and honestly, if she really likes you, it doesn't matter what you do anyway. It
is so true. No, my partner laid it on thick with me. And, but you know, I know this sounds like kind of corny, but maybe not to you because you believe in this, but I prayed to God. I said, God, when the right man comes along, I want to meet him by my birthday. I want him to write me a poem, and I want him to feel like I'm the person he's been looking for. I don't want to convince a man that I'm the one. I want him to convince me that he's the one, right? I want him to chase me. And we met on my birthday. He wrote me a poem for my birthday, and he told me that I was the empress he'd always been looking for, because his grandfather told him to never settle till you find your empress. And that was the name of my business. And I was kind of confused. And I wasn't on TikTok or anything, so it's not like he saw me on there. He doesn't use social media. So, you know, it's those things that kind of clicked for me that made me piqued my interest. But he laid it on pretty thick. But I was equally as interested. If I wasn't interested, I'd be like, ooh, this is a little bit too much, you know, but I liked him. So it's true. If a woman is into you, you can really kind of say anything. Women fall in love through their ears. Men fall in love with their eyes. So if a man can understand how to efficiently and effectively communicate with a woman, and like, you know, reach into her soul, I mean, you have her hooked, kind of, right? Because women aren't so much about looks as much as men are, I'd say.
I think that's true, but looks are still important.
You have to be attracted to the person. You know, you have to have chemistry. Chemistry is important. But chemistry is one of those things that, like, is something that is unexplainable. It doesn't always, like, I've met a lot of really handsome men and, like, no chemistry, and I never date them, you know?
Sure. Yeah, I think where guys who maybe aren't as gifted in the looks department do better is meeting women organically, like in person, you know, almost like cold approaching or even just warm approaching, you know, just looking for any kind of signs of interest in approaching, because that shows confidence. Whereas you don't have that on like a dating app, for instance. Yeah. And on a dating app, it's almost purely your looks and how you open and stuff, you know, but so I think I just have one more question here and then we'll wrap up because we're almost at an hour. Do you ever get your videos reported by feminists?
So I did have one. I saw your recent video that you had been reported. Yeah. I had one removed, and it was so funny because it was a video about how I started doing the content helping women and how my audience changed from mostly women to men, because I guess women didn't like what I was saying. And then I said, you know, men really want peace when they come home from work. They don't want drama. This is how you keep a man interested. And it was totally like, and then I kind of said how women like don't take accountability or something. I said something. And then they reported me and it got removed for hate speech.
Yeah. That's what they do. Yeah.
I didn't say anything hateful. I just said that men like peace. You're gonna have me reported for talking about peace as hate speech.
Did you appeal it?
I did, and they let it back on my page.
Yeah. I've my original TikTok account got banned permanently back in June.
What?
Yeah, last year. It was the day after. So I had you know Emily King, right? The slide in front of the mirror. I had her on, and the very next day after I recorded that, I got banned, and so I had to start all over again.
Oh my God! How many followers did you have?
30,000. And
we're almost back up there.
Almost. It's taken this long though this time. So because I've also had to really like color within the lines, and I've had I occasionally will get them taken down like this. I get it's not as frequent as my last account, but it happens this time it happened back to back, and I just had so many in a row that I'm like, okay, I need to actually, put my account on private mode and not upload anything for 2 weeks so that I can let that time stretch out between violations, or else I'm going to get kicked out of the creator fund. Potentially they'll put me in an upload ban or something like that. And I just can't let that happen. But it's so bad. They just send armies of people after me because I did a video on basically when a woman says, we're not going to have sex tonight or whatever. Right. And I was like, well, that's oftentimes it's a shit test, and I'm like, obviously if she's serious about it, like, okay, fine. Nothing's happening, but a lot of times it's almost like a dare. And
I liked your video where you said that women were like cats and they kind of I forget what you said, but it was very clever. And I was like, that's actually kind of true. And then it was funny because my sexologist I studied from did a post the next day talking about how women were like cats. And I was like, yeah, I never thought about that before.
I actually got that from Corey Wayne, who I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Yeah. His book has a whole chapter on how women are like cats, men are like dogs.
But why are women like cats again? I forget what you said.
Basically, women are like cats because if you chase them, they'll run away. But if you ignore them, they sort of wonder why you're ignoring them. And so they come up. I
hate being ignored.
Yeah. And so
it is such a pet peeve.
Yeah. It's just stuff like that, you can't tell a cat what to do. You have to let them come and go as they please, But
I feel like that's more like a man though. Why is a man like a dog?
Because men because dogs, they will come up to you and they immediately love you. Right. And guys will see a pretty girl and are immediately like, retarded about it. And that's pretty much the analogy.
Do you think that men are more loyal?
No, I don't. Honestly, I think that the whole idea of monogamy and courting for dating and stuff like that, I mean, that just hasn't been in humans history very long, maybe a couple hundred years. And if you look in Eastern countries, it's still not, they're still not even there yet. They're doing, arranged marriages and harems and stuff still. So it's just not what we've evolved to do. We're just sort of over the last, few centuries, maybe have tried it out. So it's just not easy for humans to get right, I think.
I think some people can do it easier than others.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
I think some people aren't wired for it. I think some are. I guess it just depends. And I prefer it. I prefer being with one person. If I'm dating and I'm not exclusive with anybody, I have learned that dating multiple people is way easier. But once I'm exclusive, that it's just easier for me. What are some tips to how to behave with a man to keep him loyal? I mean, I know you can't make a man be loyal, but what are some things you can do to at least help the situation? Is it really just by giving him consistent sex, or what do you think?
I think all guys are different, but I think consistent sex, but genuine desire sex, right? Not just doing it because, well, it's Tuesday and sex day. That kind of stuff gets boring. I think one thing that my girlfriend is really good at is she just is a very serving person. So she doesn't like me to get up to get anything. She's like, oh, let me get that cup for you. Let me take your dishes. Let me serve you food and stuff like that. And so I've had to learn to just let her do it.
I'm very much like that as well. I don't know if it's because I grew up in the South traditionally, but women would say that behaving that way is like a doormat. Do you think that men lose desire for a woman who serves him?
No, I don't think so. I think men sort of want that, and men have been taught not to let women do that. my whole life, I was always like the nice guy, like, oh no, let me do that, honey. Oh no, let me cook you dinner and stuff.
Interesting.
And I've learned that a lot of women want to do that. They want to do nice things for their men, and men should just let them do it. And then everybody's happier.
Yeah. I was kind of raised to like, I guess, be that way for my grandmother. But I know with my dad, like whenever I ask my dad what he wants for his birthday or something, he'll be like, I'm the dad. I'm supposed to buy gifts. I'm not supposed to get gifts. You know, He has that kind of mentality that like he's the provider, you know, in all ways, even with his wife. So like she makes money now and he like doesn't have her even help out, even though she could. He just thinks that he's the one that's supposed to do all the work. And I think it can be a little bit of a burden for men, you know, to have that much responsibility.
Yeah. Well, I think people need to be realistic too with the times. I just finished Rollo Tomasi's latest book called Religion. And he says traditional conservatives, they want a time machine. They don't want a red pill. You know, they want to go back to the old ways. And that's, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube, you know? So it's like, well, how do we move forward in modern society? In modern society, you know, with prices going up and stuff like that, it's hard for, you know, a man to provide for a household and not have his wife work as well, you know, for a lot of people in America.
Yeah, so, I just did a video on this and I got a lot of heat for it. This guy was saying that men should pay the mortgage. And, you know, I don't know, I grew up very traditionally. All the men provide. That's just how I was raised. So I do understand though inflation is crazy and the cost of living is so high. And as you know, when you're in the military, you learn discipline. My dad was in the Air Force, so he's very responsible about his money. He's an airline pilot now. He makes good money, but he saves and he knows how to reinvest. So that's how he was able to kind of, you know, pay for our college and pay for everything. But you know, some of these hypergamy coaches, feminine coaches who tell women like only date wealthy men, it's like there's not a lot of wealthy men out there. So you know, what are you going to do when, I mean, a lot of wealthy men are cheap. A lot of wealthy men don't have great character. Like, are you going to sacrifice that for money? Right. So, and then they say, don't build with a man. And I have seen actually more so than not, I get a lot of queen archetypes who come to me with managers, and managers will use a woman financially. And I've seen it so many times, women get taken advantage of financially by men. I mean, it's super common. Wow. Nowadays, more so than the other way around from what I've seen. But then, you know, you see these women that kind of like give men all this money or pay the mortgage, or like, let's say a woman does 50-50 with a man on a mortgage, and she's spending all this money to help him with the mortgage. And then let's say he gets really successful, leaves her for a younger woman, and now she's helped him pay off a house and she has nothing. Right. So there's ways that I guess both genders can get kind of screwed and this, but,
yeah, like how I was married and I was the sole breadwinner and she didn't work at all. And then, you know, she got half the house money and she didn't even pay for it, you know, and then I had to pay her alimony for years. And yeah,
I'm sure that's a difficult pill to swallow. Somebody in my family, he's not blood related to me, but he married into our family. He came from money and he'd been married like 3 times and he's paying off 2 alimonies from 2 wives, you know, supporting the person he married in my family, you know, and I don't want to give too much information, but never mind. I don't want to give too much information about it, but he ended up like having to get a second job, delivering pizzas on the weekends, even though he had he owned his own like medical practice, you know. That's but we nuts, kind of were, but we were kind of thinking like he was doing it to kind of get away from his wife because they weren't getting along. But you know, because he's spending all this money on the alimony from the 2 women. So I understand, you know, where men are coming from. The family court system is pretty messed up, and it does leave men in really bad shape like that. Yeah, it does. Because women not a good proposition anymore. Yeah. I mean, the only time it can favor a woman, and I've done a video on this, is if you're dealing with a ruler archetype man who has a lot of money and power, he can pay to keep you in court over and over and over again. And he can pay off people. I had a client of mine who was with a ruler archetype man, and he just kept taking her to court for custody of their kid. Finally won the custody because not because he wanted to raise the kid, but he wanted to make her suffer. He did a bunch of other horrible things, like, just awful, but that's kind of like more of a rarity that you find, but it can happen if you're with one of these like power hungry men. They can really ruin your life, and they have the money to, because they can keep you. The woman married to the creator, the musician, she was married to a ruler who did the same thing. He took her to court over and over again to get custody of their children. And then he has full control over their kids and doesn't let them travel to see her. It's just a big nightmare. But, like you'd mentioned, more often it favors the woman, and then she has control and can manipulate and say bad things about the man, and then, creates all kinds of problems.
It's rough. It's like, at least my ex-wife and I get along pretty well. So thankfully, and our split wasn't as bad as some of the people I've encountered doing the podcast. But I just can't fathom why people like to stick it to each other so bad. It's like, you know what? Why don't you just move on? Just move on. But they can't. It's so sad.
Yeah, it can be difficult when you feel like you've been duped or cheated on, right? Like for me, I don't have many deal breakers, but loyalty, infidelity for me is something that I just could not forgive. My partner knows that. Yeah. But some women, like my grandma, she didn't care. She's like, I don't care if your grandpa cheats, why? Some women don't have that in them, but me, I'm too possessive.
Yeah. A lot of women don't really mind as long as they don't know about it. They're like, they don't mind. Yeah.
Oh God. To me, it's like a stab in the heart. It's a big sore spot for me, but I have karma in my family of infidelity. On my mom's side, the women cheated. On my dad's side, well, my dad never cheated, but my grandfather was a womanizer. So I guess like in my family karma lineage, infidelity is kind of a common thread on both ends. So it's something that I've had to deal with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, we're a little over an hour here, so let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online, Alexi?
So I have a TikTok called The Empress Collective. I just started a YouTube, but I haven't uploaded anything. You can find the link on my bio on my TikTok. I couldn't do a URL thing because I'm not verified yet, but yeah, or you can find me on my website at alexiturner.com.
All right.
Yeah.
This was a really fun conversation. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Paul.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. Sounds good.
Alexi, thanks again for joining me. I appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime. That was a really interesting conversation. I never realized that I was the entrepreneur archetype. All right, guys, I hope you got something out of it. Alexi's a good chick. Follow her on TikTok. She makes some pretty good, compelling videos. That's all I have this week, guys. We'll see you next week on Monday.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.